The law of persuasion. What if the most important part of persuasion happens before the persuasion even begins? Before you say yes, before you're offered a choice, before you even know there's a decision to be made, someone has already nudged your mind into place. That's the hidden art of persuasion, a subtle, quiet science that shapes your mental environment before anything is asked of you. It doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply arranges the room inside your mind. The world is full of decisions, but we rarely ask why we made them. We buy a product, agree to a meeting, say yes to a request, and we think the reasoning happened in the moment. It didn't. Your mind was already tilted. Gently, invisibly, deliberately. One of the most powerful tools in persuasion is something called anchoring. If I show you the number 500 before asking how much you're willing to donate, you'll likely give more than if I showed you the number 5. Not because 500 means anything, but because your brain grabs the first thing it sees and uses it as a starting point. The anchor is planted, and everything else drifts around it. Then there's priming. If you're shown words like kindness, trust, or warmth right before meeting someone, you're more likely to like them, not because they earned it, but because the mood was set in your mind before they walked in. This is what master persuaders do. They shape your mental stage before they ever step onto it. Think of a magician. Before the trick happens, your eyes have already been directed where they want them to go. Look over here, not over there. See this detail. Ignore that one. Persuasion is the same, just psychological. It's not what's said. It's what's prepared to be said. The power of context is another invisible hand. If you're asked to fill out a job application in front of a wall filled with achievement awards, you'll rate yourself higher. But if you fill it out next to a wall of warnings and failure notices, you'll rate yourself lower. Same form, same questions, different reality, shaped by context. You weren't just answering, you were responding to the invisible. Persuasion is used in marketing, it's used in politics, and it's used in everyday life. More than you might think. A salesperson might hand you a heavy clipboard before you fill out a form. That physical weight can make you take the content more seriously. Not because it's more important, but because your brain feels like it is. Weight becomes significance, and your subconscious agrees, quietly. Even the music in a store can steer your mind. Studies show that classical music leads people to buy more expensive wine. French music nudges people toward French products. Slow music makes shoppers move more slowly and buy more. You're not being manipulated. You're being pre-persuaded. You still feel in control, but the path was gently lit before you started walking. At its core, persuasion teaches us one thing. Decisions don't happen in isolation. They are shaped, primed, anchored by what came just before, and what came just before can be engineered. But here's where it gets deeper. We do this to ourselves too. The words we speak internally, the stories we tell ourselves, the way we frame our own experiences. These are all acts of persuasion on ourselves. You might tell yourself, I never succeed. And suddenly, every opportunity looks smaller. Every risk feels heavier. Every failure feels inevitable. The persuasion already happened before the choice even arrived. So, what if we use this power with intention? What if we chose better anchors, set our own frames, primed our minds for strength, not fear? What if the question isn't, how do they persuade me, but rather, how am I already persuading myself? The answers might be softer than you think. They might arrive in the silence between thoughts, in the mood before the moment, in the breath before the belief. Because persuasion isn't always loud. Sometimes, it whispers before it speaks. Let yourself drift with that thought. Not everything you believe started with a reason. Sometimes it started with a setup, and now you know how to see it. Conversational framing. Every conversation you've ever had wasn't just about the words. It was about the frame that held those words. The frame is the silent picture that tells you what kind of conversation this is. Is it a debate, a confession, a joke, a threat? Before you hear the message, you accept the frame, and that frame shapes everything. Frames are powerful because they're invisible. You rarely notice them, but they decide what makes sense and what doesn't. If I ask, "Why are you so angry?" you might not be angry at all. But the question quietly assumes you are. The words don't ask you if you're angry. They tell you you already are. That's framing, and it works before you even realize it. This is how skilled persuaders operate. They don't argue about content. They control context. They don't push you. They tilt the floor beneath you, so your choice slides into place, all by itself. Imagine someone says, "Do you want the standard plan or the premium?" It sounds like a choice, but notice what's missing. There's no no option. There's no maybe later. You weren't offered freedom. You were offered a frame with the illusion of choice, and you probably didn't notice. That's what makes frames so powerful. They create the boundaries of thought. Once you accept the frame, you play by its rules. Think of a courtroom. The frame says, one side is right, one is wrong. But what if both are right, or neither? You won't consider those options, because the frame already erased them. This happens in politics, in relationships, in marketing, and in everyday life. A parent says, "Are you going to clean your room now, or after dinner?" A boss asks, "Can you finish this by Friday, or do you need until Monday?" These aren't real questions. They're framed directions, and you follow them, because the box feels invisible. Frames don't just control behavior. They shape reality itself. If you say, "He lost because he's lazy," you framed his failure as personal. If you say, "He lost because the system is rigged," you framed it as structural. Same event, different story. Because frames are stories, and we live inside them. Even tone creates frames. A sarcastic, "Oh, great," turns good news into bad. A calm, "Let's talk," frames the moment as serious, even if no words follow. We feel the frame before we understand the words, and here's where it gets deeper. We don't just receive frames, we create them. Every time you describe your life, you're framing it. If you say, "I've been stuck lately," you've framed your life as a trap. If you say, "I've been preparing for something new," you've framed the same events as transformation. Same facts, different feeling. Because the frame holds more than the story, it holds your identity. Persuasion isn't always about changing minds. Sometimes it's about changing frames. Instead of asking, "How do I win this argument?" you might ask, "What kind of conversation am I in? Is this a battle, a performance, a negotiation, a cry for help?" Once you see the frame, you can decide whether to accept it or break it. In ancient philosophy, there's an idea. We suffer not from events, but from our interpretation of them. Frames are those interpretations, and they run silently until we wake up to them. So ask yourself, what frame am I inside right now? Who gave it to me? And do I want to keep it? Because you can't choose your reality until you can name the box it comes in. Let that question drift with you tonight. Not all traps are physical. Some are just stories with invisible borders. And once you name the frame, you can step outside of it, quietly, gently, on your own terms. The foot in the door trap. Most people imagine persuasion as a powerful push, a single convincing moment, an undeniable argument that flips your decision. But real persuasion doesn't push. It opens a door. just slightly, just enough for one foot to slip through. And once the foot is in, the whole body follows. This is called the foot in the door technique, and it's one of the quietest and most effective tactics of control. It starts simple. A stranger asks if you'll sign a petition. You agree. Later, they ask for a donation. You hesitate, but feel strangely compelled. Why? Because saying yes once changed your identity. Now, you're the kind of person who cares about the cause. Saying no now feels inconsistent, and your brain doesn't like inconsistency. This is how the trap begins, not with pressure, but with a whisper. Just one step, it says, just a small favor. And we say yes, because small steps don't feel dangerous, but each one takes you further than the last, until you look back and wonder how you got so far from where you began. Marketers know this well. They offer you a free trial, then a small upgrade, then a premium version, then you're locked in. Each step feels reasonable. Each choice feels yours, but the path was already built, and all they needed was your first yes. Cult leaders use it too. They don't start with doctrine. They start with kindness, an invitation to a meeting, a shared meal, a thoughtful question. Slowly, beliefs are introduced, not forced, just suggested, until disagreement feels like betrayal, and leaving feels impossible. You didn't join a cult overnight. You followed a staircase made of yeses. Even in abusive relationships, the pattern repeats. It doesn't begin with violence. It begins with charm, attention, love bombing, then control, then isolation, then harm. And each time, the victim justifies the last step, because they already agreed to the one before. The foot was in the door, and the door kept opening. Psychologists call this commitment and consistency bias. Once we make a choice, we want to act in ways that align with it, even if that path leads somewhere dangerous. We'd rather feel consistent than feel right, and that bias is the trap. But here's the strange part. We don't just fall for it. We use it, often without knowing. A teacher gets a student to participate in class by asking them to just read the first line. A friend eases into a big ask by starting with a joke. A partner suggests a small change. That leads to a big one. The foot in the door technique is not evil. It's human. It's how influence works, one soft step at a time. But awareness is power. Because now, when someone asks you for something small, you'll pause, not in fear, but with clarity. You'll ask, what path does this yes put me on? Who do I become by agreeing? Not every door is dangerous, but every door leads somewhere. And once you walk through it, you're on the path, and that path isn't always visible, because we rarely feel ourselves changing. We only notice it later, after the fourth favor, after the fifth compromise, after the sixth silence, when something didn't feel right. But we said nothing. The first step was free. The second was familiar. The third was routine. And now, here you are, inside a room you never meant to enter. But the beauty of the mind is, we can step back out. Every moment is a choice. Not just to continue, but to stop, to say, that next yes, it doesn't fit anymore, and slowly, to turn around. So as you drift tonight, ask yourself, where have I said yes, just to stay consistent? What steps have I taken, not because they felt right, but because they were already in motion? And what would happen if I simply stopped? Because not every open door is an invitation. Sometimes, it's a test. The scarcity illusion. Scarcity is a spell. It whispers, this might be your only chance. This thing is rare. Everyone wants it. If you don't take it now, someone else will. It makes your heart beat faster, your grip tighten, your judgment shrink. You don't just want the thing, you need it. because it might disappear. And that fear is how they get you. Imagine this: 2 cookies, identical in every way. One sits in a full jar, the other in a nearly empty one. Which one do you want? Most people choose the one from the empty jar, not because it tastes better, but because it's rare. That's scarcity. It doesn't change the object. It changes your perception of value. Marketers love this. Only 3 seats left. Sale ends in 2 hours. This product is selling fast. They're not giving you information. They're creating panic, a psychological shortcut. If it's rare, it must be valuable. But that's not always true. Sometimes it's just scarce. Not special, not essential, just limited, on purpose. This trick goes deeper than shopping. It works in relationships too. That person who's hard to reach, who texts you once every 2 days, who stays mysterious, aloof, emotionally unavailable. Suddenly, they seem magnetic, not because of who they are, but because you feel you can't have them. They become a puzzle, a prize, a problem you want to solve, not out of love, but out of lack. Scarcity turns absence into a lure. It confuses distance with depth. And worst of all, it makes you question your own desires. You don't stop and ask, do I actually want this? You ask, what if I can't have it? And that fear overrides everything else. This is how cults build loyalty. They isolate members from the outside world. They restrict information. They create scarcity of connection, approval, even food or rest. And then, they become the only source of it. The only place where love exists. The only place where answers live. The only place where meaning is offered. You stay, not because it's good, but because everything else has been made scarce. We fall for it online too. A viral post with limited context. A trending product with 0 reviews. A new app invite you can only get from someone on the inside. The illusion of rarity makes you lean in, because if everyone wants it, it must be worth wanting, even if you don't know what it is. But here's the twist. Scarcity works. Even when you know it's a trick, even when the countdown timer resets every time you refresh, even when you know the product isn't actually running out, even when you've seen the only one left lie 12 times before. Why? Because scarcity doesn't live in logic. It lives in emotion, in the nervous system, in the part of you that remembers what it felt like to lose, to miss out, to be too late. But what if you didn't respond that way? What if you paused, right at the edge of panic, and said, wait, if this thing wasn't rare, would I still want it? Would you still chase that relationship if they gave you their full attention? Would you still want that item if it were always in stock? Would you still crave that experience if it were easy to access? Because if the answer is no, you're not chasing the thing, you're chasing the scarcity. Scarcity hijacks your sense of urgency. It makes you forget that most things are not actually running out. Opportunities repeat, doors open again, love returns in new forms, peace doesn't expire, and the things meant for you don't need a ticking clock to be real. So tonight, ask yourself, where has scarcity fooled me? What have I chased, not because it was true, but because it felt rare? What have I held on to, not because it made me whole, but because I was afraid it would vanish? And what would happen if I let it go? Because the most powerful kind of clarity is realizing you don't need something just because it's slipping away. You only need what speaks to your soul, whether it's rare or not, or the mirror effect. You probably think trust is built with honesty, with years, with shared memories. But what if trust is often built in seconds, with something so simple, so automatic, you'd never notice it unless someone told you? And now I'm telling you, it's called the mirror effect. A subtle, eerie trick where someone copies you, your words, your tone, your breath, your posture, and without realizing it, you start to trust them. Not because they're honest, not because they're kind, but because they reflect you back to yourself. And there's nothing more familiar than you. The mind is wired for recognition, for patterns, for sameness. When someone mirrors your body language, your phrasing, even the rhythm of your sentences, it creates an illusion of connection. They get you. They just feel easy to talk to. But most of the time, they're just playing psychological judo. In FBI interrogation rooms, agents are trained to do it. When the suspect leans forward, the agent leans forward too. When the suspect lowers their voice, the agent softens theirs. A synchronized dance of silence, sighs, and shared posture. And it works. It calms tension, builds false rapport, lowers defenses without force. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We all do it, even without realizing. Watch two close friends talk. You'll see a dance, a mimicry, legs crossed the same way, laughs timed like music. One speaks, the other echoes the tone. Even on a first date, if it's going well, bodies begin to mirror. Not because someone planned it, but because connection creates mimicry. And mimicry creates the illusion of connection, which is where the manipulation comes in. Smart persuaders don't wait for natural rapport. They manufacture it. A salesman repeats your exact phrasing. You say, "I'm worried about the cost." He replies, "Totally. The cost is something we're really conscious of." You feel heard. But you've just been mirrored, and it goes deeper. In therapy, mirroring is a healing tool. In cults, it's a control device. When a cult leader adopts the dress, speech, and gestures of the group, he's not bonding, he's blending. And blending gives him power, because people don't resist what feels familiar. They open up, they relax, they say yes, not because of truth, but because of rhythm. Now here's a darker twist. Mirroring doesn't just create trust. It can reshape identity. Studies show that when someone mirrors your emotions, your brain starts to value their opinion more. Even if it contradicts what you believed 5 minutes ago, you'll start to see their beliefs as your own. Because in the back and forth echo of mimicry, the lines blur. Where do you end, and they begin? There's even a term for this in psychology. Limbic resonance. It's the tuning fork of emotion. When two nervous systems start to hum together, you feel connected, safe, but also suggestible. Because once your emotions sync, your guard drops, your critical thinking loosens, and their words slide straight in. Like a whisper into the soul. Marketers know it. Pickup artists live by it. Political operatives build whole careers on it. They enter a room, read the vibe, and reflect it. They become what the crowd needs them to be. Quiet among the quiet. Loud among the loud. One of you. But they're not. They're a mirror. And mirrors have no substance, only reflection. So what can you do? You can't stop people from mirroring you, but you can notice it. And when you do, pause. Ask yourself, do I trust this person because of their character, or because they're acting like me? Am I listening, or being subtly echoed back at myself? Because when someone mirrors you, you're not seeing them. You're seeing your own reflection in their behavior. And that's the trick. You're not falling for them. You're falling for you. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, remember the silent power of reflection, the hidden language of trust, and how sometimes the person who feels just right might only be playing your rhythm back to you. Sleep well and stay aware. The power of plausible deniability. Let's say someone whispers something strange into your ear. Not a lie, not the truth, just a seed. They don't say it directly. They don't ask you to believe it. They just leave it hanging, like a fog in the air. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's sarcasm. Maybe you misheard. And if you ever try to confront them about it, they'll say, "I never said that." You're reading too much into things. Relax. It was just a joke. Welcome to the most slippery tool in the persuasion arsenal: plausible deniability. It's not about telling you what to believe. It's about nudging you toward an idea so you think it's your own, then standing far enough back that they can say, "Who, me? I didn't do anything." This is persuasion that hides in the shadows. It works like this. A political advisor doesn't say, "We should spread misinformation." They say, "What if people just started believing something else?" A manipulative partner doesn't say, "You're crazy." They say, "I don't remember that happening. Maybe you're just tired." A marketer doesn't say, "This product will change your life." They say, "Thousands of people are talking about how this product changed their life." Subtle shift, massive difference. Plausible deniability thrives in the gray area between suggestion and responsibility, because the best way to convince someone isn't to scream, "This is true." It's to whisper, "What if this is true?" and let their own mind do the rest. This tactic is powerful because our brains hate uncertainty. We want to complete thoughts. We want to fill in the blanks. We need to connect the dots. So when someone leaves the frame open, we build the picture ourselves. It's the con artist who never technically lies. It's the cult leader who never issues commands. It's the toxic boss who never writes anything down. They speak in riddles. They speak in suggestions. And they always leave an exit ramp for themselves, while you're stuck driving toward the idea they planted. This tactic shows up in everyday conversations too. Let's say someone says, "Everyone's noticed you've been different lately." Who's everyone? What does different mean? Are they concerned or judging? They never say, but the damage is already done. Your brain starts spinning. You start analyzing your behavior. You feel defensive, even though they never accused you of anything. That's the trap. The power of plausible deniability is that it shifts the burden of meaning onto you. They don't persuade you directly. They invite you to persuade yourself. Now, combine this with status, authority, a little charm, and suddenly, this tactic becomes a weapon, a smiling assassin. Think about charismatic leaders. They don't always issue clear directions. Instead, they surround themselves with people who've been primed to infer their desires. And because nothing is said aloud, nothing can be proven. If something goes wrong, they shrug. "I never told them to do that." But if it goes right, they reap the rewards. It's control without fingerprints, power without paperwork. Here's the scariest part. Plausible deniability works even if you're aware of it, because humans are deeply social creatures. We're wired to read tone, implication, posture, subtext. We don't just listen to words, we interpret them. We read between the lines, even when the lines are blank. So when someone says something vague, suggestive, or sly, you can't not process it. It's like someone humming a melody, and your brain completing the lyrics. And that's the art of this tactic. It creates plausibility for the speaker, but certainty for the listener. The speaker stays innocent, but the listener feels sure of the message. It's why rumors spread so easily, why gossip feels true, why we feel manipulated but can't prove it. It's not a direct attack on your beliefs. It's a stealth virus planted inside them. So how do you protect yourself? One way: listen to what's not being said. Ask yourself, What is this person trying to make me think, without ever saying it out loud? Don't be afraid to clarify. What do you mean by that? Can you be specific? Are you saying X? If they backtrack? If they get defensive? If they say, "Oh, no, I didn't say that." You found it. The smoke, the mirror, the ghost of persuasion. The next time you feel the weight of an idea in your head, but you can't remember when you first heard it, pause. It might not have been spoken. It might have just been suggested, with a smile and an alibi. Guilt-based control. Guilt is a ghost emotion. It doesn't scream, it haunts. You don't hear it. You feel it. In the tightness of your chest, the drop in your stomach, the quiet impulse to say, "I'm sorry," even when you've done nothing wrong. Guilt is not always proof of wrongdoing. Sometimes it's proof that someone else has learned to pull your strings. Because guilt is a tool used to extract favors, apologies, devotion, even love, without ever asking for them directly. Let's start simple. Imagine a friend helps you move. They lift boxes, sweat in the sun, and smile the whole way through. You thank them. But then, weeks later they say, "I was really there for you when you needed me." I guess not everyone returns the favor. Suddenly, your stomach twists. You feel selfish, ungrateful, even though they never asked for help, even though you never refused. This is how guilt-based control works. It's not a direct command. It's a loaded silence, a carefully placed sigh. And, "I guess I'll just do it myself," meant to echo in your mind until you give in. There are two roles in this play, the martyr and the mind reader. The martyr says, "Don't worry about me," even when they want you to worry. They do things without asking, then resent you for not noticing. They give, and give, and give, so they can one day say, "Look how much I've done for you." They give not to help, but to build credit. Emotional debt, invisible strings. The mind reader, on the other hand, punishes you for failing to meet needs they never voiced. They'll say, "You should have known I was upset," or, "If you really cared, you'd have called." They expect you to read between lines that were never written. They weaponize disappointment, then say, "I'm not mad," even as their silence suffocates you. And it works. Because guilt is exhausting. You'll do anything, say yes, show up, overextend, just to make that feeling go away. This is why guilt is such a popular tool in toxic relationships, manipulative workplaces, and cults. You're never commanded, you're just nudged, made to feel like you owe them time, money, effort, compliance, even your identity. You'll find it in families. "I raised you, I sacrificed everything, the least you could do is..." You'll find it in religions. "After all he did for you, you're still having doubts?" You'll find it in leaders. "Don't let me down, I believed in you." The most skilled manipulators don't raise their voice, they lower it. They don't argue, they suffer, out loud, visibly, dramatically. Their pain becomes your problem, and if you resist, that's when the silent treatment begins. Ah yes, the most powerful guilt tactic of all. They disappear, not physically, emotionally. They go quiet, cold. They don't explain what you did wrong. They just withhold affection, approval, presence, until you crack. You text, you call, you apologize for something, anything. Because silence is a vacuum, and guilt rushes in to fill it. The trap is elegant. The more you care, the more control they have. They never ask you to change. They just make you feel bad for who you are. So what's the way out? It starts with a sentence. "I don't accept guilt that doesn't belong to me." You are allowed to say no without being selfish. You are allowed to have boundaries without being cruel. You are allowed to care without being controlled. Healthy relationships don't rely on guilt. They rely on communication, requests, not riddles, conversations, not silent punishments. So tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, let this idea settle. You are not a villain for protecting your peace. You are not heartless for walking away from guilt traps. You are not broken for needing space. You're simply remembering something they hoped you'd forget. That love is not a debt, and guilt is not proof of truth. Breathe. Let go. No more carrying pain that was handed to you like a gift wrapped in sacrifice. You never asked for it. You don't have to keep it. Good night. The false choice trick. They say freedom is when you get to choose, but what if the choices themselves are a lie? You're sitting at a diner. The waitress asks, "Would you like coffee or tea?" And you say, "Tea." But what if you didn't actually want either? What if you wanted water, or nothing? But somehow, you answered the question anyway. That's the trick. You were given two options, both engineered, both framed. And by choosing one, you never realized the question itself was manipulation. This is the false choice trick, and it's one of the most common and invisible persuasion tactics in the world. Imagine a kid refusing to eat dinner. The parent doesn't say, "You must eat." They say, "Do you want carrots or peas?" The child, wanting control, says carrots, and suddenly thinks they've made a decision. But in reality, they were nudged into eating either way. That's the brilliance of the trap. By presenting two roads, you forget there might have been a third path, or no road at all. You believe you chose, but your choice was inside a box someone else built. Politicians love this one. You'll hear it in every debate, every campaign. Are you with us or with the enemy? Do you want safety or chaos? Two extremes, framed neatly. And once you pick one, the conversation is over. No room for nuance, no time for real thinking, just the illusion of freedom, wrapped in a binary. It feels like control, but it's really control over you. Marketers use this constantly. Do you want the standard plan or the premium? You stare at the pricing table. $10 or $20. What you don't ask is, do I even need this product at all? Because the moment you're comparing two options, your brain has already accepted the purchase. It's no longer, should I? It's, which one? That subtle switch in framing, from yes, no, to this or that, is where the persuasion happens. Not when you say yes, but when you stop questioning. Salespeople are trained in it. Car dealers will say, "Do you want to take the silver one for a spin or the red one?" And you say red. Now you're behind the wheel. You feel in control, but you miss the real question. Do I want to test drive a car today? That was never on the table. Because they never put it on the table. They shaped your freedom. And you thanked them for it. The false choice trick works because it hacks your brain's desire for agency. We want to feel like we're making decisions, even if we're being puppeted into making them. So the trickster gives you a stage, some props, and says, pick your part. And you do, not realizing the script was written before you walked in. Even your internal thoughts do this to you. Ever felt stuck in a situation and told yourself, should I stay or should I suffer through? But wait, is that it? Isn't there another option? Leave, speak up, rebuild. False choices don't just come from others. They come from the stories we trap ourselves inside. We present ourselves with fake doors and then beat ourselves up for choosing the wrong one. All while forgetting we could have built a whole new hallway. Advertisers love to offer limited options too. Do you want the last blue hoodie or the last black one? Your scarcity alarm goes off. You rush to grab the blue, but you didn't think, do I even like this hoodie? The choices created urgency. Urgency created commitment. Commitment erased clarity, all because you thought you had power and didn't notice the cage. So, How do you defend yourself? Start by asking, what isn't being offered here? When given two paths, pause, look around. Is there a third, a fourth, a door not shown? Sometimes saying neither is the most powerful answer. Sometimes, leaving the question unanswered is the clearest act of agency, because the only real choice is the one you make outside the frame. You've been offered choices your whole life, from teachers, parents, politicians, bosses, advertisers, even your own anxious thoughts. And each time, they made you feel like the decider. But now, you know better. Next time someone says, "Do you want to fall asleep now or in 10 minutes?" You smile, and you say, "Actually, I'm choosing not to answer." And just like that, you're back in control. Good night. Gaslighting. Welcome to the soft war, where your memory is a battleground and your reality is up for negotiation. This is Gaslighting 101, the gentle art of psychological demolition. Not through shouting, not through fists, but through whispers. Little nudges that make you question everything, including your own mind. It always starts with the small things. You misplace your keys. You're told you didn't. You clearly remember the conversation. You're told it never happened. You hear the tone shift. They say you're imagining it. And then it happens again and again, until reality starts to feel like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit. You start asking questions, not to them, but to yourself. Did I overreact? Am I remembering wrong? Maybe I am the problem. And that, right there, is the goal. Not control over your behavior, control over your truth. Because when someone can make you doubt your own thoughts, they don't need to force you to obey. You'll do it yourself. Gaslighting isn't about lies. It's about erosion, a slow drip of doubt that wears away at the rock of certainty, one drop at a time. A parent tells a child, "You're too sensitive. Stop imagining things. Don't be dramatic." That child grows up learning to override their instincts, thinking emotional discomfort must be a glitch, not a signal. A partner cheats, then turns the confrontation into an accusation. "How could you think I'd do that?" You're paranoid. You're destroying this relationship. They don't deny the action. They deny your right to interpret it. It's not about what happened. It's about who gets to define what happened. And when they win that battle, you don't just lose the argument. You lose access to reality. Gaslighting is often dressed in politeness. It wears the smile of reason. It sounds like concern. "I'm just trying to help you." You're overthinking it. Everyone else thinks you're overreacting too. Notice the trick? The abuser never attacks directly. They make you feel crazy for noticing. Because if you call it out, you sound irrational. You sound unstable. You sound like exactly what they're trying to paint you as. That's what makes gaslighting so effective. It's not brute force. It's psychological aikido. You get flipped by your own momentum. But here's the thing. Gaslighting doesn't work on a blank slate. It preys on a mind that's already doubting itself, already trying to be better, more agreeable, more forgiving, more reasonable. The gaslighter just nudges what's already shaking. They know how to weaponize your empathy, your desire to be fair, your fear of being seen as difficult. They build a prison where the bars are made of your own politeness. And the more you try to explain yourself, the guiltier you feel. The more you seek clarity, the more confused you become, until you stop seeking altogether. Gaslighting isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's learned behavior, passed down like a broken heirloom. Parents gaslight because their parents did. Partners gaslight because they watched their own parents rewrite history at the dinner table. It becomes a way of surviving, controlling chaos by controlling narratives. But just because it's unintentional doesn't mean it's harmless. Gaslighting causes real psychological damage. It disconnects people from their intuition. It trains them to mistrust their feelings. It rewires the internal compass. So when something feels wrong, instead of acting on it, you hesitate. You second guess, and you stay silent. That's the most dangerous part. Not the manipulation, but the silence it breeds. So how do you spot it? Look for the patterns, not disagreements. Gaslighting is bigger than conflict. Look for consistent dismissal, repeated denial of things you remember vividly, minimization of your feelings, shifting blame, and the constant feeling that nothing you say is quite valid. Also, pay attention to your body. Your nervous system knows before your brain catches up. That knot in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, that foggy feeling when you talk to someone, those are not malfunctions. They're warning signs. And finally, how do you break free? Start by anchoring your reality. Keep a journal. Write things down. Record your memories, feelings, timelines. When someone tries to rewrite history, you'll have something to return to. Next, find a third voice, a therapist, a grounded friend, someone who isn't embedded in the chaos, someone who can say, "No, you're not crazy. That did happen." Because when the world tells you the sky is green, you need someone to remind you it's still blue. Gaslighting is one of the darkest persuasion tactics out there, because it doesn't just change how you act, it changes who you think you are. So if your reality feels slippery, if your confidence has turned into confusion, if you're starting to feel like a stranger to your own thoughts, you might not be broken. Covert hypnosis and embedded commands. You've heard it before. The soft voice, the slow cadence, a sentence that makes you feel something before you even realize what's being said. And by the time you do, you're already nodding, already agreeing, already obeying. Welcome to the art of covert hypnosis, where influence slips past your logic like a whisper through fog, where words don't ask you to believe, they install belief. Let's dim the lights a little. It begins with language, the kind that bypasses conscious resistance. Normal persuasion says, "Here's what I think, and here's why." Covert hypnosis says, "You're already thinking this, aren't you?" It's not about argument. It's about assumption. I don't know how soon you'll begin to realize how much this could change you. Not if it will change you, just how soon. You see the trick? It presumes agreement. It skips your filter. And suddenly, your brain is playing catch-up to something that already slipped in the back door. This isn't magic. It's pattern. And the first pattern is trance. You're probably in a light trance right now, scrolling late at night. A still room, low stimulation. Your brain waves slowing, opening. This state is gold for covert hypnotists, because you're more suggestible, more emotionally tuned, less analytical, and now they speak. Here come the embedded commands, little landmines buried inside casual sentences. You can start feeling more confident when you let go of hesitation. That doesn't sound like a command, but start feeling more confident goes straight into your subconscious, wrapped in soft language, disguised as an observation. A magician waves one hand so you don't notice the other. This is the verbal version of that. These techniques are used in places you'd never suspect. High-end sales. People who succeed with this usually know early on it's right for them. Dating seminars. Notice how attracted you feel as you listen to my voice. Cults and seminars. You're already becoming the person you were meant to be. They speak as if it's already happening. Your brain, built to find coherence, starts filling in the blanks, and the blanks are full of their intent. Another trick, temporal presuppositions. When you eventually realize how important this is, the statement doesn't allow for if, only when. The suggestion is planted, and the timeline is yours to accept. That's the genius. Or, You're going to feel more calm as you think about these words. It feels like a truth, but it's just a carefully shaped sentence, a mood disguised as meaning. And then comes pacing and leading, the oldest hypnosis formula. Step 1. Say 3 things that are undeniably true. You're sitting there, listening, breathing. Step 2. Slide in the suggestion. And you're starting to feel heavy, relaxed. Your mind says, well, the first 3 were true, so maybe the 4th is too? That's how logic becomes an accomplice to manipulation. Is it unethical? Depends. A therapist might use it to help you quit smoking. A scammer might use it to make you wire money. Same technique, different motive. The tool is neutral. The intention is everything. But here's where it gets scary. Most people have no clue they're being hypnotized, because they expect spinning spirals and pocket watches, not calm voices on YouTube, not TikToks that say, listen closely. But those voices, they use rhythm, tonality, pattern. They mirror your thoughts before you even form them. They create the illusion that your conclusions were your own. That's the real trap. Not I told you to think this, but you just happened to think this. That's the genius of covert hypnosis. So what can you do? Notice. When a sentence feels too smooth, stop. When someone skips if and goes straight to when, pause. Ask yourself, was that your thought, or was it handed to you? Awareness breaks the trance. It doesn't make you immune, but it makes you dangerous. Because manipulators hate minds that see. So next time a voice says, you're already feeling safe, aren't you? You'll smile. Because you'll know exactly what they're doing. And it won't work like it used to. Because you're not asleep anymore. You're watching. Wide awake. Social proof engineering. Imagine this. You walk into a restaurant you've never heard of. It's empty. Not one table is taken. The lights are warm. The smell is amazing. But something in your brain whispers, leave. Then you walk past another place. Crowded. Loud. Line out the door. You don't even like the food, but you're already pulling out your phone to check the reviews. Why? Because your brain has a primitive shortcut. If everyone else is doing it, it must be safe. This is social proof, and it's one of the oldest, most powerful manipulation tools ever invented. But here's the modern twist. Social proof can be engineered. Let's start with the basics. In psychology, social proof is a bias. Your brain is lazy. Instead of analyzing the full situation, it scans the crowd. Are other people panicking? Are they relaxed? Are they buying this? And it mirrors the vibe. Not because it's smart, but because it's fast. Safe. Automatic. Evolution didn't reward skepticism. It rewarded survival. If everyone's running from a lion, you don't stop to ask questions. Now in the digital age, the lion is gone, but the illusion remains. And influencers, brands, cults, and movements, they know how to fake it. They manufacture popularity. They simulate consensus. They stage the crowd. And once the crowd is in place, you follow, without even realizing you're doing it. Think about this. A new guru launches a book. It sells out in a day. What you don't see? They bought their own copies, in bulk. Now it's a bestseller. A video gets 1 million views in a day, but most of those views? Paid traffic, loops, bots. The real audience is you, watching after it's already popular. A comment section full of, "This changed my life." What you missed? Planted testimonials, sock puppet accounts, each one building the illusion that this thing matters. Social proof isn't the result anymore. It's the strategy. This tactic is so common, it has levels. Scarcity plus social proof. They say, Only a few spots left. This offer expires tonight. They show fake countdown timers, limited seats, wait lists. It's not real, but it triggers panic, because it sounds like everyone else is already inside, and you're about to be left out. Authorities stacking fake endorsements, fake Forbes features, seen on CNN badges that lead nowhere. Every fake credential makes you think, if they trusted him, maybe I should too. You're not convinced by the person. You're convinced by the crowd around the person. Manufactured virality. If enough people repost it, it must be true. If it's trending, it must matter. If the quote is everywhere, the person must be smart. But trends are bought. Virality is farmed. Fame is just a well-funded illusion now. They don't need to be real, they just need to look like they are. That's enough to drag your attention in. Now combine all that with your brain's need to belong, and you've got the perfect storm. Because deep down, most people would rather be wrong with the crowd than right alone. That's how cults survive. That's how scams spread. That's how average ideas get treated like gold, just because everyone claps. And if no one claps, you assume something's wrong with you. But here's the poison pill. Once enough people believe the hype becomes real. It doesn't matter if it started fake. Once momentum kicks in, it's a self-fulfilling manipulation. Fake proof, real attention, real trust, real money, more proof. Social proof is no longer a signal, it's a weapon. So how do you defend yourself? You slow down. You pause when something looks too popular, too fast. You question when every comment says the same thing. You wonder, is this person smart or just well followed? Do I like this? Or do I like being part of what everyone else likes? If you feel urgency, wait. If you feel FOMO, pull back. Because social proof only works when you stop thinking. But now, you're thinking. That's the crack in the spell. And once you see the crowd was staged, it loses all its power.